In Hollywood, perfection is the minimum requirement. But if you're a black man in Hollywood, perfection isn't enough. You have to be superhuman, strong, stoic, emotionless, and absolutely unquestionably heterosexual. Step outside that box, even for a moment, and the rumors start. Too private? Suspicious? Too well-dressed? Questionable? Too sensitive? Gay. Because in Hollywood's economy of masculinity, there's no room for nuance, no space for complexity, no tolerance for anything that doesn't fit the narrow definition of what a black man is allowed to be. But here's what they don't tell you. The rumors aren't gossip. They're weapons, tools of control, ways to keep talented men in line by threatening the one thing Hollywood knows they fear, being labeled. This video isn't about outing anyone. It's about exposing how Hollywood remains obsessed with policing, defining, and destroying any man who dares to exist outside their script. Subscribe now. Because what you're about to witness isn't about sexuality. It's about power. And who gets to keep it? Let's start with the ones who built walls so high the media couldn't even reach them. The A-listers who understood that in Hollywood, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Tyler Perry, the empire that needs no explanation. Tyler Perry owns a film studio larger than Warner Brothers. He's worth over $1 billion. He's employed thousands. He's created an empire that operates entirely outside Hollywood's traditional power structure. And he's never been married. Never had a long-term public relationship. Never addressed the whispers that have followed him for decades. Why? Because Tyler Perry understands something fundamental. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation. Not the tabloids, not the fans, not the culture that's spent 20 years trying to put him in a box. While other stars scramble to prove their heterosexuality with strategic relationships and forced photo ops, Tyler built something they can't touch. Power so absolute that the rumors become irrelevant. He turned curiosity into noise. And then he drowned out the noise with box office receipts and studio expansions and a legacy that will outlast every gossip column ever written about him. That's not hiding. That's domination. That's looking at Hollywood's obsession with his personal life and saying, "I'm too busy building monuments to care what you think." Jamie Foxx, the master of misdirection. Jamie Foxx is one of the most talented people on the planet. Actor, comedian, singer, producer, he can do everything, except apparently be transparent about his personal life. And that drives people crazy, because Jamie uses humor as a shield, uses talent as a distraction, uses charisma to deflect every personal question with a joke that makes you forget you asked. He dates publicly enough to avoid suspicion. He's photographed with women at events. He plays the game just enough to stay off the radar. But his actual life? That remains locked behind a smile that never quite reaches his eyes. Some people find it charming. Others find it suspicious. But here's what Jamie Foxx understands. In Hollywood, mystery is currency. The less they know, the more valuable you become. He's not hiding. He's curating, choosing what to share and what to protect. And in an industry built on exposure, that level of control is revolutionary. Is the mystery making him more attractive or more dangerous in Hollywood's eyes? Both. And Jamie knows it, and he's weaponized it perfectly. Queen Latifah, the royal declaration. Queen Latifah never did a tearful coming-out interview, never released a statement, never played the game the way everyone expected her to. She simply thanked her partner Ebony at the BET Awards, casually, naturally, as if it was the most normal thing in the world, because for her it was. No build-up, no explanation, no apology, just acknowledgement. And then she moved on. And that refusal to make it a moment, that was the most powerful statement she could have made, because it said, "I don't owe you a performance of my authenticity. I don't owe you tears or trauma or a redemption arc. I'm Queen Latifah, and you'll take what I give you and be grateful for it." The media didn't know how to handle it. They wanted drama. They wanted a confession. They wanted her to fit into the coming-out narrative they'd written for her. But Queen Latifah wrote her own script, and in doing so, she showed an entire generation that you don't have to beg for acceptance. You can simply exist, and dare them to have a problem with it. Now let's talk about the men who got caught in a different trap. The ones who were too good, too perfect, too sensitive, and paid the price for it. Morris Chestnut, the gold standard under scrutiny. Morris Chestnut has made a career playing the perfect man, the loyal husband, the devoted father, the guy who does everything right. And somewhere along the way, people started looking for cracks. Because in Hollywood's logic, nobody's that perfect unless they're hiding something. He's been married to the same woman for decades. He's private about his family. He doesn't do scandals. He doesn't do drama. He just works and goes home. And that apparently is suspicious. Because the narrative demands that black men be messy, be visible, be loud. And when a man refuses to perform that narrative, when he chooses quiet dignity instead, the rumors fill in the blanks. Morris Chestnut's privacy has been weaponized against him. His perfection has become evidence of deception. And that says everything about Hollywood and nothing about him. Mekhi, phifer. The price of family values. Mekhi. Phifer built his career on being the reformed bad boy, the guy who learned his lesson and settled down, the family man who could be trusted. But maintaining that image requires constant performance, constant proof, constant visibility of the right kind of relationships at the right times. And when the whispers started, when people began speculating about his private life, Mekhi learned that black men aren't allowed gray areas. You're either one thing or another. And if you're not performing heterosexuality loudly enough, people will decide for you. The pressure to maintain the family man image became a prison, because it's not enough to live your life. You have to prove your life. You have to make it visible. You have to turn your relationships into content. And that's exhausting and dehumanizing, and exactly what Hollywood demands. Tyrese Gibson, When Men Cry. Tyrese Gibson cries on Instagram. He shares his pain. He talks about his struggles. He's emotionally vulnerable in a way that black men are rarely allowed to be. And instead of compassion, he gets speculation. Instead of support, he gets rumors about his sexuality. Because in Hollywood's twisted logic, emotion equals weakness, and weakness equals gayness. Think about how sick that is. A man shares his genuine feelings, his real pain, his human vulnerability, and the response is to question his masculinity. Tyrese's story is a perfect example of the trap. Be strong and get called emotionless. Be vulnerable and get called suspicious. There's no winning, just different ways to lose. And that's the point. The system isn't designed to let black men be fully human. It's designed to keep them performing a very specific, very limited version of masculinity. And anyone who steps outside that performance, even for a moment, pays the price. Now let's talk about the ones who didn't just challenge the system. They tried to break it. Some succeeded. Some were destroyed trying. Darryl Stevens and Doug Spearman, the silent heroes, before Moonlight won Best Picture, before Pose changed television, there was Noah's Ark, a show about black gay men living their lives, loving each other, being messy and complicated and real. And Darryl Stevens and Doug Spearman were at the center of it, playing characters that were effeminate, flamboyant, unapologetically themselves. They knew what they were sacrificing. They knew that playing these roles meant they'd never be A-list action stars, never be romantic leads in major films, never escape typecasting. But they did it anyway. Because representation mattered more than stardom. Because visibility was worth the cost. Hollywood punished them for it. They've spent the years since fighting for roles, proving they can play more than one thing, watching less talented actors get opportunities they'll never have. But their legacy? It's massive. Every black queer actor working today stands on the foundation they built. Every authentic story being told now exists because they dared to tell theirs first. They're not famous, but they're heroes. And that matters more. Jussie Smollett. The tragedy of a symbol. Empire gave Jussie Smollett everything: fame, platform, the opportunity to play a gay black character on one of television's biggest shows. And then came the incident, the alleged attack, the investigation, the accusations of fabrication, and the complete collapse of his career and credibility. The story is complicated. The truth is contested. But what's undeniable is this: Jussie Smollett went from representation icon to cautionary tale in a matter of weeks. And the speed of his fall, the brutality of his cancellation, raises questions. Was this justice? Or was this an industry that was looking for an excuse to punish a black queer man who'd gotten too visible, too powerful, too confident? Jussie's story is a warning about what happens when you become a symbol, when your personal life becomes political currency, when your mistakes, real or perceived, become ammunition for people who never wanted you to succeed anyway. Whether you believe his story or not, the aftermath revealed something ugly: how quickly the same industry that celebrated his representation turned on him. How eager everyone was to watch him burn. Donnie McClurkin. The War of Faith. Donnie McClurkin is a gospel legend. Multiple Grammys, millions of albums sold. A voice that has moved churches for decades. And he's also claimed that God cured him of homosexuality. Through prayer and faith, he overcame same-sex attraction. This is where it gets impossibly complicated. Because Donnie McClurkin's story sits at the intersection of faith, sexuality, trauma, and community in ways that defy simple analysis. To the LGBTQ+ community, he's a symbol of internalized homophobia, of conversion therapy narratives, of self-hatred wrapped in religion. To many in the black church, he's proof that faith can transform anything, that redemption is real, that God's power is absolute. And Donnie himself? He's a man who spent decades trying to reconcile irreconcilable things, trying to find peace in a framework that tells him his nature is sinful, trying to serve God while denying himself. There's no easy answer here, no simple takeaway, just a tragedy, just a man caught between worlds that both claim him and neither accepts. But here's where the story changes, because there's a new generation that looked at all those rules, all those traps, all those cautionary tales, and said, not us. Jonathan Bailey, the Prince of the New Era. Jonathan Bailey is openly gay, and he played Anthony Bridgerton, the romantic lead of Bridgerton's second season, and the world fell in love with him. Women wanted him, men wanted to be him, and nobody cared that he dates men in real life, because his performance transcended his personal life. Jonathan Bailey proved what Hollywood spent a century denying: that desire isn't about the actor's sexuality. It's about talent. It's about chemistry. It's about being so undeniably good at what you do that nothing else matters. He didn't hide to get the role. He didn't play straight. He just existed as himself and let his work speak louder than any rumor ever could. And in doing so, he demolished the masculinity trap. He proved that you can be gay and romantic, queer and desirable, authentic and successful. He's not just an actor. He's a blueprint for everyone coming after him. Colman Domingo. The elegance of truth. Colman Domingo is in his 50s. He's openly gay. He's masculine in a way that Hollywood historically couldn't process. Powerful, commanding, undeniable. And he just got nominated for an Oscar. For playing a real person. For being brilliant. For being himself without apology or explanation. Colman represents something revolutionary. You don't have to be young to break barriers. You don't have to fit a stereotype to be seen. You don't have to hide to win. He waited his whole career for Hollywood to catch up to him. And when it finally did, he was ready, prepared, excellent. His existence is proof that authenticity doesn't have an expiration date, that talent eventually wins, that the system can change if you refuse to break. Keiynan, Lonsdale, and Jeremy Pope. Fluidity as power. Keiynan Lonsdale wears skirts. Jeremy Pope embraces gender-fluid fashion. They make queer music. They post about their lives without filter or fear. They're not just actors, they're performance artists. They've turned their difference into a brand, into power, into something Hollywood has to acknowledge because they've made it too big to ignore. They represent a generation that refuses to choose, that rejects the binary, that says, I can be masculine and wear makeup. I can be powerful and vulnerable. I can be all of it at once, and you'll deal with it. They're not asking permission. They're not explaining themselves. They're just existing loudly, colorfully, unapologetically. And that terrifies the old guard, because it proves that all those rules were always arbitrary, that masculinity was always a performance, that the trap was never real. Trevante Rhodes, The Silence of Moonlight. Trevante Rhodes played a gay man in Moonlight, gave one of the most tender, devastating performances in modern cinema, and then went home and said nothing about his personal life. He let the work speak. He let the art stand. He refused to turn his performance into a statement about himself. And that choice is just as valid as the ones who speak loudly, because authenticity isn't just about visibility, it's about autonomy, about choosing what to share and what to protect. Trevante Rhodes proved you can support queer stories without making your personal life content. You can be an ally through your work without becoming a spokesperson. His silence isn't closeted, it's boundaries. And in an industry that demands everything, boundaries are revolutionary. And let's not forget the ones who don't fit into any of these categories. The women, the comedians, the ones who found their own way through. Wanda Sykes. Laughter as a weapon. Wanda Sykes came out and made it funny. Not because her sexuality is a joke, but because laughter is her weapon, her shield, her way of disarming the hate before it can land. She's black, she's gay, she's a woman, three identities that Hollywood loves to marginalize, and she turned all three into her strength. She doesn't apologize, she doesn't explain, she doesn't perform suffering. She just exists with her wife and her kids and her brilliant comedy and dares you to have a problem with it. Wanda Sykes is proof that you don't need permission to thrive. You just need talent and confidence and the willingness to laugh at anyone who tries to make you small. Bowyer-Chapman. Finding space between worlds. Bowyer-Chapman faces racism in the gay community and homophobia in the black community. He exists in the space where two forms of discrimination intersect. And instead of letting it break him, he became a judge on Canada's Drag Race. He became visible. He became a voice for everyone else caught between worlds. His journey isn't easy. His position isn't comfortable. But his existence matters. Because he's proof that you can survive being unwanted by both sides. That you can build a place for yourself when no one offers you one. So let's pull back and see what we've learned. 15 stories, 15 different strategies for surviving Hollywood's masculinity trap. Tyler Perry, Jamie Foxx, and Queen Latifah built fortresses of silence so strong that rumors became irrelevant. Morris Chestnut, Mekhi Phifer, and Tyrese learned that perfection and emotion both get weaponized. Darryl Stevens and Doug Spearman sacrificed stardom for representation. Jussie Smollett and Donnie mcclurkin paid devastating prices for different reasons. And then the new generation arrived. Jonathan Bailey, Colman Domingo, Keiynan Lonsdale, Jeremy Pope, and Trevante Rhodes, who looked at all the old rules and said, "We're rewriting this." Here's the truth Hollywood doesn't want you to know. Masculinity was always a trap. A performance designed to control. A narrow box that benefits no one except the people selling the boxes. And the ones who survive? They're not the ones who perform it best. They're the ones who refuse to perform it at all. So support these artists, whether they choose silence or visibility, whether they speak loudly or work quietly. Because the revolution isn't about everyone doing it the same way. It's about everyone getting to choose their own way. Subscribe if you believe masculinity should have no script. Comment which story resonated most with you. Share this with someone who's tired of performing. This is Silent Fame, and we celebrate every form of rebellion, the loud ones, The quiet ones, the ones still figuring it out. Because the glass closet is shattering, and the future belongs to whoever's brave enough to walk through the broken glass. Like if you believe authenticity beats performance, comment which artist you'll support differently now. Subscribe because the rules are changing. Share this with someone who needs permission to be complex. The masculinity trap is closing, but only if we stop feeding it.